Good morning, everyone, and welcome to e-commerce, helping your business in uncertain times and into the future, presented by the Florida SBDC at UCF. My name is Justin Anderson. I'm the Senior Information and Market Research Specialist at the FSBDC, and I'll be co-hosting the webinar today, along with FSBDC presenters Jairo Batista, Consultant and Marketing Manager, and Herein Elatar, International Trade Specialist. Now, before we get started, I'd like to give a brief overview about the SBDC. If you go to the next slide. The SBDC, or Small Business Development Center at UCF, is an economic development organization that exists to help small businesses grow and succeed. We are state designated as Florida's principal provider of business assistance and are partially funded by the SBA, state of Florida, and other local support organizations and community partners. The SBDC has been around for 45 years. And we have offices throughout Florida, ranging from our headquarters in Pensacola to the Keys, with each region being hosted by a university or state college. In Central Florida, we're hosted by UCF. Our service offerings include no-cost one-on-one consulting in all different areas of business, normally in person, but now virtual seminars on various business topics and strategies, and specialized programs for more established second stage businesses like our advisory board program, government contracting, CEO exchange, and export marketing plans. And before I pass it on to our presenters, I just wanted to cover a few housekeeping rules. Please keep your mics muted. If you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat box at any time. I'll try my best to monitor and address the questions I can't answer. I'll keep a note and we'll have Jairo and Herein address it at the end of the presentation. Evaluations for this webinar will be emailed to you after this session, so please check your inbox at the conclusion and submit your feedback as soon as you can so we can improve our future offerings and gain a better insight of what y'all liked, disliked, etc. And because we're fairly new to hosting webinars, these evaluations are particularly important so we could better tailor them to your needs. So any and all feedback is greatly appreciated. And finally, please note that the content covered in this presentation is essentially an overview and is intended to get people thinking and want to dive deeper into the world of e-commerce. So again, if you'd like to talk more in depth on the topic with a specialist, I believe we'll cover how to receive consulting at the end of this session. I'd like to thank you all again for joining us. And without further ado, I'll go to my corner and be quiet and we'll pass it on to Herein.
Thank you, Justin, and good morning, everyone. We really appreciate you joining us this morning. So let's just get started. Okay, so as a starting point, we should first define e-commerce. So e-commerce, which is also known as electronic commerce or internet commerce, refers to the buying and selling of goods or services using the internet and the transfer of money and data to execute these transactions. E-commerce is often used to refer to the sale of physical products online, but it can also describe any kind of commercial transaction that's facilitated through the internet. E-commerce business models of all types are thriving now more than ever due to the current pandemic. Sales from online stores are expected to increase 78% this year alone, and globally, business-to-consumer e-commerce sales are expected to reach $4.5 trillion by next year. So getting started, what will we be discussing today? We'll start with choosing an e-commerce business model that makes sense for your product, selling your product, calculating all the relevant costs associated with running an e-commerce business, how to attract your customers, choosing the right platform, and finally, we'll talk about expanding your market overseas through e-commerce. Okay, so deciding what type of business you want to sell is a first step, and there are two main types of e-commerce businesses, B2B, which is business to business, and B2C, which is business to consumer. So B2B refers to the model where one business sells to another business, and there are both advantages and disadvantages to this type of business model versus selling to an end customer. The pros of selling to other businesses are that order sizes and repeat orders are typically larger and more frequent. However, there are fewer businesses than there are consumers. So typically sales cycles are longer and price is quite a heavy contributor to purchase decisions. B2C means that you're selling directly to the end customer that will be using the product. This is a more common type of business model and what most people think about when they discuss building an e-commerce business. But it also should be noted that there are other business models as well that are a bit less common, including B2G, which is business to government, and C2C, which is consumer to consumer, which is what you may think about when you see Craigslist or eBay. So what type of products do you want to sell? The next step is deciding the actual type of product. Do you want to sell a physical good, a digital good, or a service? So selling physical goods is what most people think about when they think of an online store, and it does make up the majority of online e-commerce businesses. Although physical goods are the most popular type of product type to sell, it does present challenges such as inventory storage, shipping, breakage, and insurance, and we'll be talking about those a little bit further in a few moments. Digital goods are also a popular type of product to sell, and they have the advantage of not needing to store any inventory when there's no physical delivery like physical products have. Digital goods can be music, ebooks, videos, images, or software. And the biggest challenge with digital goods is piracy. Digital goods can be reproduced and sold thousands of times over. And so because of that, their margins are considered to be the best type when it comes to the best type of product to sell, and doesn't have the headaches associated with shipping and inventory management. And the third, slightly less common product type to sell online are services. Online services can range from consulting, web design and development, content writing and editing, and a whole host of other service options. And after COVID-19, more services are coming online more than ever. Selling services through an online store can be a great way to build credibility and gain exposure, but it does typically come with a limitation of scalability because the services are typically delivered by a person, and therefore they're limited to that person's time. How will you acquire your products? So this is a portion we'll spend the most time on for this segment of the presentation. After you determine who you're selling to and what you're selling, you then have to determine which e-commerce model you're choosing to adopt. So in the next few slides, we're going to go over the various types, and those include dropshipping, reselling, white labeling, also known as private labeling, manufacturing, and handcrafting. So a dropshipper is an online store that does not hold any inventory. The dropshipper simply moves goods from the manufacturer or the third party to the consumer. So the model goes as follows. A customer orders a product through your website and they pay retail. Your website receives the order, then forwards the order to the supplier and pays the supplier wholesale. The supplier then sends the product directly to your customer and you pocket the profit. So the key to making money with this type of model is making sure that the price difference between what you charge and what the dropshipping partner charges you is sufficient. There are various benefits and drawbacks to the dropshipping model. Since there is very little starting capital, there's actually quite a low barrier to entry to starting dropshipping. One can get started with a dropshipping website for as little as $30. So that doesn't, very likely that you'll ever need any outside capital to get started with this type of business. Since you don't store or ship any products, you don't have to manage inventory and there are no order minimums. So that allows you to offer a larger selection. You can do dropshipping from anywhere in the world. This model offers location independence. And it's scalable. You can accept more orders without having to hire more staff. In general, suppliers don't require payment until the product is sold. So unlike most retail, there is a positive cash flow because you don't pay the supplier until after the buyer pays you. So as far as drawbacks are concerned, although a low barrier to entry was a benefit, it's actually also a drawback because this business model is kind of easy to get started with and low cost. There are a lot of copycats out there. So the downside to this is you're going to be facing a lot of competition with other stores selling the same products. So with this model, it's very important to do a competitive analysis before getting started. This model also offers lower margins than the other e-commerce models, and you can typically expect about 20% margins with dropshipping. This model does have complex shipping. If you work with one supplier, you won't really face this problem, but it's likely you're going to be working with several different suppliers. So you're going to have to figure out how you're going to mitigate shipping costs from multiple suppliers. And then you have to decide, do you want to pass the shipping costs on to your customer, or do you want to absorb that cost to make it a bit more attractive to your customer? High shipping costs is one of the biggest reasons customers do leave a checkout. So as a drop shipper, you may have to cover some or all of the shipping costs. As an example to this, if you have an order with 4 different products from 4 different suppliers, that's going to cost you about 4 times as much as ordering from one supplier. So keep in mind that your customers won't know that their products are coming from 4 different suppliers. They just see you as the retail store and think it's all coming from you. So figuring out how to keep the shipping costs low is key for this model. And finally, for drop shipping, there is a lack of control. You get blamed for all the mistakes. If you have a good supplier, you won't run into this problem very often. You can typically expect about 1 to 2% of your orders to have some issues. But if you're dealing with a bad supplier and the order issues can be over 2%, it could lead to a bad reputation for you as the storefront. If your sellers are slow, if the product quality is lower than what your customer expects, or there are problems with the order, people are going to take it out on you, and often they do that through bad online reviews. So something to keep in mind with this model. One of the most well-known dropshippers is Wayfair, wayfair.com. Currently, they do have warehouses for some of their products, but when they started way back in 2012, they started as a dropshipping business. And over time, they've adapted to different e-commerce models. But they do still primarily work as a dropshipper. They have about 10,000 different suppliers, and those 10,000 ship about 95% of their products. So a dropshipping tip for success is to find a supplier that can supply as much as your inventory as possible, so you don't have to worry about hiding multiple costs. Okay, the next e-commerce model we'll discuss is reselling. Reselling is the archetype of e-commerce and retail. A reseller buys products from wholesalers, distributors, or manufacturers at a lower cost and then sells them for more than what they bought them for. With reselling, not only do you have to have your own website where you accept the orders, but you actually have to store the products. So that's a big difference between reselling and dropshipping. So the benefit is that you're selling other people's products, so you don't have to manufacture them yourselves, but you do have to store them. So discussing the benefits of reselling, if you're already familiar with a niche, then you know which products are in demand and will sell well. So you don't need to spend a lot of money on research and development. You know exactly which products to store. As an example to this, if you're an expert on birds, let's say, and then you know what type of bird feeders are the best ones, what type of bird food, binoculars. So you'd buy them from the suppliers and you turn around and sell them on your website. Reselling also offers you control over shipping costs and procedures since you're storing the products and fulfilling the orders yourself. And this typically leads to larger margins and more flexibility in this type of business model because you're usually buying at about 50% of the manufacturer's suggested retail price. Reselling also offers you the opportunity for low-cost experiments. What that means is instead of having to order a large amount of products, you can order a case, let's say, to experiment and see how well it sells. And then if it sells well, that maybe will help you open doors to expand into other areas. And you do have some flexibility when it comes to overhead. Your fulfillment can be outsourced. For example, you can use a third-party logistics company. This will eat away at your margins, but it does allow you to keep your business remote. Or you can keep your fulfillment in-house. This does result in higher margins per sale, but it does take time and energy and a lot of effort to manage your own inventory. The drawbacks to reselling, it does not offer you a branding opportunity. Other stores can sell the exact same products as you, and this can definitely threaten your business. So in order to mitigate this, you're going to have to add some value to your products, and we'll discuss that a little bit later. And reselling is capital intensive. So although the goal is to buy low and sell high, you also need to offer hundreds or if not thousands of different SKUs. So to get started with a reselling business, you can expect to spend about $10,000 to $20,000 or more to get started. Lodge Goods is an example of a reseller. They sell a variety of well-made goods from craftsmen and manufacturers around America. They refer to themselves as a men's club of online goods, and almost every single piece that they sell is made in America. So they've really carved out their niche here for those that are very interested in made in the USA products. but they carry other brands, and so they're able to offer a wide selection of products and brands. Tips to reselling success include constantly experimenting to see which products and niches are the most profitable. And because there is no branding, you have to add value to your business, and you can do that by hiring expert staff. You can offer a bigger selection for your niche market, or you can bundle services with your products, such as warranties or free classes or tutorials with your products. White labeling occupies a space between reselling and manufacturing or product development. So at one end of the spectrum, private labelers take the generic products and they sell them on Amazon, let's say, without any modification, just adding their brand name to the listing title. And at the complete other end of the spectrum, the private labeler can customize the product and packaging so much so that it bears little resemblance to the actual original generic item. As a retail strategy, private labeling is definitely not new. You've probably seen these in supermarkets or convenience stores before. The supermarket, let's say, will take a generic product and literally just add their own label to that and make it their own. It's been done for many years, and it allows them to provide a range of products that are usually mid-price, but they are highly profitable for the company, to sell alongside the household brand names that they also stock and that we're maybe more familiar with. The benefits to white labeling or private labeling: you can create your own branding and you can focus on what you want to focus on. For example, you can focus on price, quality, or being environmentally friendly. Building trust: your private label will be the basis of building a trusting relationship with your customers, and you can give them what they need so that they come back again and again. And it gives you the opportunity to build a fan base for your product. And something about the brand should really appeal to people to build that fan base. By selling your own brand, you also have full control over the packaging, the labeling, manufacturing, and the quality, ultimately, of your product. You're going to be the one setting all the rules for your brand and for your business, and you can build it as you see fit. Less worry. So if you've done your research right, you're going to be working with products where you already know what to expect in terms of the quality, the manufacturer, and the target customers. So it won't be such a shot in the dark when you come to launch. It gives opportunity for more profits. Instead of selling a name brand product, you can sell your own brand. And that allows you to bypass middlemen and vendors, which can lead to increased margins. And you also get full control over pricing. And finally, reduce competition. If you choose to sell on Amazon private label in a smaller niche category, you can avoid competition with larger companies for sales. So you have the opportunity here to become the go-to product in your niche. The drawbacks: so although you can create your own branding, you must first build it, and that takes time. No one knows who you are at first, so they may not want to buy your product until they know a little bit more about you. So it does take longer than reselling in this aspect. And since white labeling requires the manufacturer to add your logo to the product, it is more capital intensive because they may require you to order hundreds or if not thousands of units at once. So it allows for less opportunity to experiment. And once you order, if it doesn't sell, you're kind of stuck with the product. So keep that in mind as well. So since you have to create your own brand, you have to also add value to it. And some ways to do so is to create your own instructions and packaging to provide better product information. You can create your own marketing material, such as photos or videos or text, to sell the product more effectively. And you can bundle your products with accessories that bear the same branding. Floyd's is a barbershop with locations all around the United States. They offer haircuts, and at the end of the haircut, they usually give you the opportunity to gel your hair for you using their own private label brand of their own hair gel. And this may not seem like a big deal, but to the customer, they may buy it on the spot because they see how it looks like right then and there, even though they know they can walk out of the store and buy hundreds of different types of hair gel from other stores. But they give you the opportunity on the spot while you're getting a service there using their own private white label brand. So manufacturing is creating your own product at scale using a staff in a factory. It is one of the most defensible models because it's very hard to copy. The benefits, there's unlimited potential with manufacturing. You can literally create just about anything. And this allows you to have full creative control. You have control over things such as the size, the shape, the packaging of the product. If you have something very specific in mind, maybe manufacturing is your only option. Otherwise, you're going to have to just sell what's already out there, other people's ideas, things that have already been developed. And another benefit is that you own the intellectual property yourself. So you have access to copyrights, trademarks, and patents, and you can use these to protect your brand. Drawbacks, manufacturing starts with a prototype. What that means is getting your ideas from paper, from the actual sketch, to an actual product. A lot of people get stuck on this step because it does take a lot of time. Sometimes it takes a lot of money. But some industries do have companies specialized to help you with a prototype. So when you come to manufacture, there's a good chance that you may be working with a manufacturer overseas. Why? Because the costs are dramatically lower than manufacturing domestically, typically. And so a challenge you may face with that is a language barrier. So a solution or a good tip is to hire a native English speaker as your project manager in order to ensure that the product comes out exactly how you intended it to. Enchroma makes glasses for people with color blindness to see colors that they otherwise couldn't see. So they manufactured these glasses. There was a lot of interest in this product before it launched, but when it came to actually buying, customers were skeptical because it cost about $350 for each pair of glasses. And so they didn't know if it worked or not. They weren't ready and willing to spend $350 on a product that they weren't sure was going to work exactly as it said it would. So what the company started doing was when they would send out their goods, they would send with the package multicolored balloons. So that when they wore the glasses, they could automatically see the different colors through the balloons. And they engaged a lot of influencers and people on social media to share unboxing videos on their channels. And this resulted in then people gaining confidence in the brand and the product themselves. And this is an example of something called social proof. So since branding often takes months, start building your following before your product comes out. And social media is a great tool to do this through. The last model we're going to talk about is handcrafting. Handcrafting is making the product yourself by hand. You may think today that handmade products are out of style, but they're actually not at all. There is still such a large market for handmade goods. Typically, this model starts off as a hobby at first, more than an actual financial need. And then when you turn your hobby or passion into a business, it gives you the opportunity then to sell online. There are many people successfully selling handmade products online. Etsy's addressable market is between 140 to 170 billion by 2023 estimates. And currently, Etsy holds about 4% of the total market share and is expected to grow to 5% by next year. Amazon recently opened their own version of a handcrafting businesses called Handmade at Amazon. It's very easy to start a handcrafting business. You can literally get started today if you want. If you have the skills and the tools ready, you can get started immediately. And it is a great way to see if demand exists for your products. If it does, then that could be a stepping stone to manufacturing for you. You typically need a smaller customer base because handmade products are more expensive than mass-produced products, and there is a smaller niche that are interested in such handmade products. You don't need as large of a customer base. And it also offers you direct connections to the customers, because customers can then request specific or customized products. But the drawbacks are that it is very time intensive. It could take you 20 hours or more to create just one product. So therefore, it's important to consider the price to time ratio. Make sure you price your product so that you're actually paying yourself for the time it takes to develop it. And don't worry so much about it being too expensive, because there is always an upscale market that's willing to pay for custom products. It is hard to scale. Since it's based on a unique skill, you can't just hire anybody. If you find a profitable niche, you can always scale up to manufacturing, as mentioned earlier. An example of the challenge when it comes to scaling is, think about the holidays. If you're sort of a one-person shop and you have an increase in demand around the holidays, you have to consider, are you able to fulfill the orders in time? J.L. Lawson & Company makes products such as coins, rings, spin tops, and games, all made by hand in their studio in Joshua Tree, California. A family business that has been running for 3 generations means that every piece produced has a whole lot of pride in it. So this is a great example of a handcrafting business. And another more timely example for today is there are a lot of businesses on Etsy right now that are hand-making cloth masks to sell to adults and children during this coronavirus pandemic. So next we're going to cover, how do you want to compete? There are different ways you can do so. So deciding how to compete is an important decision, and it can significantly shape the future of your business and dictate some key business decisions. The first, price. Competing on price is not typically the best option for smaller retailers, just for the very reason that everyone bigger than you out there can typically have better margins and can always go lower than you in the price. So this, in the bigger picture, could lead to price wars and just eat away at everyone's margins. Walmart is very well known for their discount strategy. As you may know, it's big enough to make this strategy work for them. By purchasing products in massive quantities, they're able to get better pricing and pass that along to customers. Competing on quality comes down to just having a superior or a better made product. This can be a great way to compete, and there are signs that the market is shifting as a whole towards longer lasting, well-made products, even if it means paying a little bit of a higher price. dbrand is an example of this. They sell vinyl skins for smartphones, laptops, and game consoles. So they recognize that the current market lacks high quality skins cut with laser precision, so they took it upon themselves to create them, and they quickly soared to being the dominant player in the skins game. Competing on selection is a great option for carving out your own space in the marketplace, but it also comes with the risk of increased inventory and storage of the inventory if you're utilizing any other method than the drop shipping that was discussed earlier. So as we all know, Amazon is without a doubt the leader in e-commerce when it comes to selection. But just because massive companies have larger selections doesn't mean you can't compete on this. It just means that you're going to have to compete on the largest selection in a very niche category. One of the best ways to differentiate yourself in the market is to provide additional value to your customers that compels them to want to purchase just from you. We discussed several ways to add value in the previous slides. Other ways to think about, great content in the forms of great product descriptions, learning centers, installation guides. These are ways that you can add value to your customers. An example of this is Right Channel Radios. They drop ship their CB radios and accessories, which means that their margins are slim, and it can make it difficult for them to compete against other competitors with better margins. But to compensate for this, they offer a ton of extra value in the form of an educational center and video reviews on most of their products located right on their website. Competing on service can be difficult to a new small business, but it can be a winning strategy. Word of mouth is extremely powerful. It is probably the most powerful form of marketing for businesses, so it does make sense to compete and deliver on an incredible customer experience that really gets people talking. Zappos is really well known for their customer service. They offer things such as free shipping both ways, 365-day return policy, and a 24-hour customer service. They also actually hold a record for the longest customer service call. It lasted 10 hours on the phone. But in case you were wondering, no, they weren't just talking about shoes. They actually started talking about life in Las Vegas because that's where they're headquartered. But I still imagine that they probably gained a customer for life on that call. So now I'll turn it over to Jairo, who will discuss selling your products.
All right, thank you. All right, so selling your product, excuse me. Okay. All right, so selling your product. Generally speaking, you have two different ways of selling your product. You can either do it via your own online store or via using a marketplace. If you're going the online store route, there are different tools available online that you can use. There's Shopify, WooCommerce, Magento, BigCommerce, Squarespace, and Wix. Besides WooCommerce, all the other platforms that I mentioned are considered all-in-one platforms, meaning they're just not e-commerce platforms, they're also your website as well. WooCommerce is a little bit different because it works on WordPress websites. It's an add-on tool for WordPress users. In order to use WooCommerce, you must have a WordPress website. However, if you have a WordPress website, you can still use Shopify, BigCommerce, and other tools available online. Some of the benefits of using your own online store is that you own the relationship with your customer, meaning with consent, you can contact your customer about related products or product warranty information. It's also more profitable than marketplaces, as you won't incur a lot of the fees that marketplaces tend to charge. You have full control over branding, sales promotions, and customer data, meaning if they go to your website, they'll see your logo, they'll see your messaging, they'll see everything that makes up your brand. You'll also be able to enable or disable or implement sales promotions however you wish. And most importantly, you can collect as much customer data as possible to help you with your future marketing. And lastly, it helps to avoid a lot of the marketplace rules. In terms of marketplaces, these are some of the following leading options: Alibaba, which is more for B2B businesses; Amazon, eBay, and Etsy. Some of the benefits to marketplaces are you have access to a wider audience. If you're a smaller organization, you can outsource your customer service and your fulfillment of orders. And lastly, marketplaces helps you with the tax collection. There are a few social media players involved with e-commerce, namely Facebook and Instagram. As we all know, Instagram is a Facebook company. If you're familiar with Facebook, you've probably seen something like this. You go to a company's Facebook page, you click on the shop button, and you see a catalog of different products. Or on Instagram, you've probably seen posts with products and prices tagged within the post. Prior to 2 weeks ago, if someone were interested in a product they found on Facebook or Instagram, they would tap on the product and then be led eventually to the company's product page. 2 weeks ago, Facebook announced that you can now actually purchase products directly from Facebook and Instagram. So that means you don't have to go to the company's product page to complete a transaction, which eliminates a step. E-commerce companies such as Shopify, BigCommerce, Magento, and a few others are going to partner with Facebook, with Facebook and Instagram shops, which means if you already have an existing Shopify account, you can upload your catalog directly to Shopify, and it'll directly feed into your Facebook page. This further lowers the barriers of entry for small businesses trying to get involved in e-commerce platforms or e-commerce world. This also provides direct-to-consumer businesses with a new sales channel. Essentially, this is going to compete with Amazon and other marketplaces. So calculating costs. E-commerce is not free. Regardless if you're going with your online store or marketplaces, you will incur some fees. This table compares three online store platforms, three popular online store platforms: WooCommerce, Shopify, and Ecommerce. As you notice on the top line, the initial setup price is free for all across the board. However, it differs when it comes to monthly price, as WooCommerce doesn't charge a monthly fee, but Shopify and BigCommerce have different membership groups. Then there's also hosting. So WooCommerce charges up to $25 per month, while BigCommerce and Shopify has hosting included. Themes, which is the design of your e-commerce platform, range from free to $300 depending on the platform you use. Apps and plugins, which are features for your e-commerce site, can vary depending on the platform. Transaction costs for WooCommerce and Shopify are very similar. However, BigCommerce doesn't charge any transaction fees as long as you're using leading payment gateways. And payment gateways are essentially merchant services that allows for credit card processing. And only Shopify and BigCommerce allow free trials. You can try it out. When it comes to marketplaces, fees vary. For example, signing on Etsy is pretty simple. you're only facing three fees: a listing fee, a payment processing fee, and an offsite ads fee. Selling on eBay, you have 4 different types of fees. You have an insertion fee, which is like a listing fee, a final value fee, which is like a selling fee, listing upgrades fee, which is more like an advertising fee, and of course a payment processing fee. Amazon, which includes several different types of fees for different products and services, can be a little bit much for some small businesses. So if you're interested in working with Amazon, it's a good idea to check out Amazon's calculator on their website to see which fees apply to you. With Facebook and Instagram shops, Facebook announced that they'll charge 40 cents for orders up to $8 or a 5% selling fee on orders above $8. So let's talk about customer attraction. There are generally 4 different methods to attract customers to your e-commerce website. In reality, these 4 methods are applicable whether you sell online or you don't. And so SEO, content creation, paid advertisements, and social media. First, let's talk about SEO. SEO in itself can be its own webinar because as SEO constantly evolves. For the sake of this webinar, we're just going to cover a few basic things that everyone can do. First, you should have 1 product per page. This is excluding catalog pages where you list a bunch of products. You should have 1 product per page that describes the product in detail. The name of the product should be in the URL and the title of that product page. And each page should have its own custom meta description. And the meta description is a brief blurb that's displayed on Google search engines, that gives the searcher an idea of what to be found on that page. And lastly, you should have alt attributes on your images. The way we process images is differently than the way search engines process images. Search engines are essentially just computers, and that rely on instructions to go about their business. This is a screenshot of a product listing on Google search for Nike, the Nike Air Force 1 07 men's shoe. And so notice that in the URL, the first line, you see Air Force 1 07 in the URL. The title, which is the second line, Nike Air Force 1 07 men's shoe, Nike.com, you have the product in the title. And the last 2 lines, starting with the Radiance Lives On in the Nike Air Force 107, that's a meta description, which also includes the product name. So notice how the product name is consistent throughout the URL, the title, and the meta description. If I were to click on this link, it will take me to this product page here. As we can see the image is clear. They're just a pair of white Nike shoes. What Google sees is this, a bunch of code. If you notice on the second line where it says ALT equals Nike Air Force 1 07 men's shoe, that's an alt attribute describing the image. The good thing about website platforms today is you don't need to worry about coding because everything's made a lot simpler. If you upload images to your website platform, whether it's a WordPress or Shopify or what have you, it gives you the ability to manually add attributes or descriptions to those images. The second part of customer attraction is content creation. Regardless of what's trending online, content will always be king. Content is the backbone of the internet. So it's a good idea to create content that includes information about your products. For example, you can develop a video of how to take care of apparel if you sell apparel, or you can create a video on how to check for tires if you sell tires. So just different ways to include your product and your branding in different types of content. These are just some examples. You can also create prezzies and slide shares and much more in terms of content creation. One thing to keep in mind that is when developing content, you must put value first above sales. So the content should be valuable to the end user and not so much a sales pitch, but it should mention the product that you do offer. Third is paid advertising. So there's different forms of paid advertising. There's paid search advertising, like the screenshot here about the Pittsburgh plumber. There is display advertising, which are banner ads that you find on different websites. And then there's retargeting ads, which is retargeting or remarketing, same thing, ads, which are basically, it's best using an example. So let's say if you were to go to an office supply website, you check out their website, you look at different office supply furniture, you close out of it, and then you go to a different unrelated website, and you see ads for office supply furniture. That is an example of remarketing or retargeting. And lastly, there's social media advertising like boosted posts or sponsored posts on Facebook or Instagram. Regardless of the, before you jump into paid advertising, it's a good idea to do your homework. Get an idea of who your customer is, such as age, geographics, their hobbies, everything involved with your customer, and then build your advertising based on that. Typically, paid advertising is approved within the same day and has potential to reach thousands of people. If you're thinking about using Google Ads, I highly recommend using Google Merchant Center to advertise your products. Google Merchant Center is a tool that helps you upload your store and product data to Google and make it available for shopping ads and other Google services. It essentially acts like a middleman between your e-commerce store and Google Ads. Here's an example of Google Merchant Center working for businesses. This first line where you see pictures of shoes and products, product information and product prices is Google Merchant Center doing its thing. Notice it's prominently displayed above all the regular ads and above the organic listings. And lastly, you definitely want to keep your customer base in the loop with social media. With so many things changing due to COVID-19, it's a good idea to inform customers of new ways customers can access your products. One of the biggest mistakes I've been seeing lately is small businesses not really posting much on Facebook or Instagram since mid-March. That gives a bad sign to its customer base, as people think that maybe the business is closed. So it's a good idea to keep customers in the loop. However, be mindful of the type of content you post. You always want to promote value as it promotes sales. Now let's get into the product pages. Excuse me. So when it comes to product pages, you should have at least 4 things. The title, which we talked about in the SEO section. Then there is the description of the product. The description of the product should include benefits and features that your product has. You should have an image illustrating the product. And lastly, you should have customer reviews. Customer reviews adds credibility to your product. It's almost like testimonials from people who use your product in real life and people sharing their experiences. It helps with people who are kind of on the fence about purchasing your product. This is an example of social proof, and you can see the definition of social proof there. For those that are worried about negative reviews, don't worry about that so much, because it's actually a good opportunity for you to educate your customers on your products. And also, it shows the world that your organization is very customer-centric. When it comes to fulfillment is essentially just getting orders to your customers. And there's generally 2 different ways with different options within those 2 ways. You can either do it yourself or outsource it to a third-party logistics company. If you do it yourself, you can mail it using flat rate shipping or live rate shipping. Flat rate shipping is just one price, regardless if it's free or there's some type of charge in it. The good thing about flat rate shipping is that customers are aware of it, and it's more transparent, and it helps to build trust. The downside to flat rate shipping is that depending on what you sell and how much you sell, it can eat into your margins. There's 2 forms of flat rate shipping. There's a couple of specific forms of flat rate shipping. There's free shipping, which is kind of self-explanatory. Customers don't get charged for free for shipping. And there's unlockable free shipping, where you tell a customer they have to spend a certain amount of money before they can get free shipping. And there's also live rate shipping, where customers are charged for based on the product's dimensions and weight. If you go to outsourcing third-party logistics route, or 3PL, there are several options. There's fulfillment by Amazon, ShipBob, FedEx, just to name a few. So choosing your platform. So before, we talked a little bit about the different platforms available and different methods you can go about it. In reality, you want to get before you jump into the e-commerce world, you want to get buy-in from your internal staff, your internal team. Yes, you want to pick a platform that's easy for customers, but you want to have a platform that's easy for your employees to maintain. So ask your team different questions. You know, what is the return exchange rate in terms of marketing? What marketing channels are we using? What are we doing on social media? How much content do we create? Logistically, how do we update inventory? If we're exporting to foreign markets, do we comply with GDPR and other government regulations, foreign government regulations? It's also a good idea to keep in contact with your keep your CPA in the loop, because there are sales taxes involved with e-commerce. And I'll turn it over to Noreen for exporting through e-commerce.
Thanks, Jairo. Yeah, that was a great segue there, talking about GDPR, right into exporting through e-commerce. So in this segment, I just really want to quickly cover how you can use your website to sell not just domestically, but overseas as well. And this is really just meant to highlight the importance of global e-commerce. This is certainly a topic that can be expanded upon in other ways, but this is just a very brief overview. So global e-commerce is selling products or services across geopolitical borders from a company's country of origin. Domestic shoppers are looking beyond borders, and as a business, e-commerce can help you expand your market. The worldwide average of online shoppers who make purchases from overseas retailers is 57%, and on almost all of the continents, that number is over 50%. So this is a graphic of the 10 largest markets for global e-commerce sales in 2019. And as you can see, China and the United States dominate. But by 2023, retail e-commerce sales in Asia Pacific are projected to be greater than the rest of the world combined. There are a few key success factors when it comes to international e-commerce. Going native with your site's language, not just through Google Translate, but actually having it in a native language can make or break your global sales. A survey of 3,000 online shoppers surveyed from 10 different countries found that language was a frontline issue in determining where they shop and whether or not they buy from you. SEO is localized. What that means is, besides your website, it's important to know that search engines are localized. For example, Google has 192 country or region-specific search engines. So this should influence the way you organize your SEO and keywords when building your website. Social media is also localized. This map shows the most used social media networks in each country. So as a US business, if you're focusing all your efforts on Facebook just because it's biggest in the United States, you'd be missing out on other markets like Russia and China, who use completely different social networks. Okay, so without carefully considering data, companies may default to just whatever they're used to when it comes to payment methods domestically, whatever's been working domestically. But this chart shows that there are different payment preferences around the world. It's no surprise that in North America, credit cards are #1 by a mile. But digital payment systems like PayPal and Apple are a close second, and they're increasing even more. And at the global scale, credit cards and those same digital payment methods also dominate. But unlike in North America, cash on delivery is the #1 choice in Eastern Europe, India, Africa, and throughout the Middle East. And enabling direct debit is a must if your target markets include India, Africa, or Asia. Local currency is also important. Most online shoppers prefer to shop and make purchases on sites that price in their local currency, and a third of shoppers are likely to abandon a purchase if the pricing is only listed in US dollars. So one of the simplest ways to begin testing foreign markets to see where you should be selling outside of the United States is to prioritize your online advertising or social media abroad. So this requires an international approach to your Google ads, to your product listing ads, to your Facebook posts, Instagram, through something called geographic targeting. Women's Best, their Instagram presence for Women's Best, which is a premium sports nutrition and sportswear shop for women, is a perfect example to this. So the brands created multiple country and language specific accounts with only very slight differences in their actual content. The cost to do this is minimal, but it's giving them a good idea as to which markets have interest in their products. This helps them to track engagement rather than just sales, and to test their products and their business's viability. And the last thing I want to touch on is third-party marketplaces. So similar to how social media varies per country, so do third-party marketplaces. Amazon is by far the largest in the United States and Canada, but this is not true for every country. For example, in Latin America, Mercado Libre is the dominant market, and in China, it's Alibaba. So it's a good idea to keep in mind other third-party marketplaces when deciding where to sell. So before we conclude, I just wanted to remind you of our no-cost one-on-one consulting services that we offer through the SBDC. If you're interested, we really encourage you to complete a request for consulting on our website, which is listed here. And with that, I'll turn it back over to our moderator, Justin, to take questions.
So we didn't have any questions in the chat, and just one comment. And I think it was during, Noreen, your first part, when you're talking about private labeling. It's from Kimberly. Okay. It said, not all private label is just the same product with a different label.
That's true. So white labeling and private labeling are very similar when it comes to their fundamentals, but there is a slight difference. Private labels are usually sold to just one retailer. White labels can be sold to various retailers. So there are some slight differences between the two.
All right. Have a question from Nelson. Private labeling always requires for a minimum? I'm guessing is private labeling always required for a minimum?
Do you need a minimum order? Yes, typically, because the manufacturer is putting your logo on there for you, so they can't use it for other people besides you. So there's a minimum for the order, and it's up to you to sell them, and you'd be stuck with them if you don't find a way of selling them.
All right, question from Deborah. When talking about choosing a platform and questions to ask your team, are these questions to ask your e-commerce platform company?
No, you can, but mainly it's more for your internal staff. Because depending on, you may have internal staff that's very well versed in e-commerce or digital marketing in general. And you also may have a team that's large enough to handle e-commerce by themselves internally. Or you may have an e-commerce, or you may have a team that's too small and you may need to outsource certain things. So there's just certain questions you really want to ask your internal staff first about what you can and can't do.
All right, we have a question from Steve. Can someone help me set up e-commerce at a cost or suggest for my new startup company?
We can't set it up for you, but we can give you kind of a guide on how to set it up. That answers your question. I'm not sure.
Yep, he said that answered it for him. Question from Nelson. Is there a way to engage your web page with, for example, Amazon pages that your customer navigates through your page in theirs?
All right, I don't understand that question.
Let me try to read it again. Is there a way to engage your web page with, for example, Amazon's page that your customer navigates through your page?
Oh, you mean connect your Amazon profile within your website? Is that what that means? Yeah, I mean, there are different ways you can definitely integrate Amazon with your private website. That's not a problem. Yeah, you can do that. WordPress has different plugins to help you do that. I'm not sure about the other platforms, but WordPress does have, can definitely integrate that for you. And I'm pretty sure if you contact Amazon, their customer service can definitely walk you through how to integrate it with other different platforms. The one thing I will say is the one thing you can't integrate Amazon with is Google Merchant Center. That is, they're kind of competing to a degree. So you really can't do that.
That was Amazon. Which platform was that? Google Merchant Center?
Yeah, Google Merchant Center. Yeah, you can't integrate Amazon with Google Merchant Center. Google Merchant Center requires your own online store.
All right. Any other questions? Oh, someone's got the same name as me. Can your company take a look at my e-commerce business and give us suggestions on how to improve?
Oh, sure. If you like, send us an email first, and we can work something out. I do highly suggest, like Noreen said, filling out a request for consulting form. But or just email us, and we'll get you that. We'll get you that online request for consulting form if you're not already a client with us.
And I just sent the request for consulting link in the chat if you guys want to visit that. Another question from Nelson. What about selling services? For example, office coffee service.
You can do that. It's going to be tough, especially in today's environment where everything's contactless and people are kind of social distancing. There's a possibility to do that. You'd have to probably go your own online store route as opposed to Amazon to do that. But it's a possibility. You can sell gift cards online if you that's another option for e-commerce. I noticed a few clients do that, where they're more service oriented, so they sell different gift cards online. So that's an option.
And then Steve followed up. Can you give me guidance? Give me a guide, contacts to help set up e-commerce. Yeah, you'd probably just need to set up the request for consulting, Steve, and then we'll reach out to you and help you from there.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? All right, well, I guess we'll finish right on time. Thank you all for attending again. Again, please feel free to complete a request for consulting if you need more assistance. And if you could please, when you can, fill out that evaluation survey so we could better tailor these webinars to help you guys in the future. And we appreciate it again, and everyone have a good rest of the day.